Have you ever had that sudden uncanny feeling while you're driving home from work?
Oh, yeah. Highway hypnosis.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just standing in line at the grocery store and you look around and wonder, like, am I actually in charge of my life right now?
It's a super weird headspace to get into.
It really is, because you make choices every single day, right? You choose what to eat for lunch, who to date, what career to pursue, or even, what deep dive to listen to.
Right.
But have you ever stopped to consider if those choices are actually yours? Or are you just perfectly reciting lines from a script you didn't even know you were holding?
I mean, it is a deeply unsettling question to just sit with. We fiercely cling to the idea of our own autonomy
Oh, totally.
because the belief that we are, the captains of our own ships, that is the entire foundation of how we build our identities, our laws, our whole society. To question that is basically to question the floor you're standing on.
Well, today, for this deep dive, we are looking at a set of sources that completely shatters that floor.
Yeah, it really does.
We're unpacking a highly provocative philosophical and spiritual text by Sufeng, edited by Kinyu, and it's titled From the Kingdom of Necessity to the Kingdom of Freedom.
It's a heavy title.
It is, yeah. And this text basically argues that human free will, like exactly as we currently understand and experience it, is fundamentally an illusion.
Yeah, and it is a profound and intricate piece of writing. It essentially bridges cold, hard, inescapable determinism with this highly structured spiritual roadmap.
Which is such a weird combo.
It really is. It doesn't just casually question our daily ambitions.
Mhm.
It completely deconstructs the machinery behind why we do what we do. And then, surprisingly, it offers a very specific blueprint for what to do about it.
Right, so our mission today is to break the mechanics of this philosophy down for you. We're going to explore this author's argument that we are entirely programmed.
The whole NPC thing.
Exactly. And we'll map out the mind-bending concentric circles of existence that the text describes. And finally, we'll look at the specific external escape plan the author proposes to break out of this programmed reality.
Because if we are just following a script, the obvious question is, how do we get a rewrite?
Yes. Let's start with the core premise, though. What exactly does the author mean by the kingdom of necessity?
Right, so the foundational premise of this text is that we all currently live in this kingdom of necessity. In this framework, absolutely everything is inevitable.
Like everything, everything.
Everything, every single action you take, every thought that crosses your mind, every outcome you experience, it's all the result of a pre-existing program.
Wow.
There are no accidents, there's no luck. There is only the unfolding of this incredibly complex, predetermined code.
Okay, I have to jump in right away because the immediate pushback here, and to be fair, the text actually anticipates this, is the cynical, lazy response.
Right, the why try argument.
Exactly. If everything in my life is inevitable and I have no real choice, why should I even try? Why go to work? Will lying in bed all day inevitably earn me a PhD?
Yeah, if I just sit on the couch and watch TV, will the universe inevitably make me a billionaire?
Right. Or, on the darker side, if everything is preordained, does that mean committing crimes will somehow inevitably make me the president? Like, if it's all a script, what is the point of striving for anything?
It's the most natural counter-argument. We just assume determinism means we can just throw our hands up and give up.
Yeah, exactly.
But the author's rebuttal to this is fascinating in its mechanics. He says, you can't give up because you can't help but try.
Wait, what do you mean?
You don't actually possess the freedom to just lie in bed and do nothing forever. Why? Because your biological and social programming will eventually and very forcefully dictate your actions.
Oh, I see. The text uses some wonderfully visceral examples to prove this point, right?
It really does.
Like, think about it. When you really desperately need to use the restroom, you must find one. You can't just philosophically choose not to. The biological code takes over completely.
Precisely. The programming dictates your absolute boundaries. The text points out that when you enter a classroom or a boardroom, you're programmed by social context and psychological conditioning to sit and listen.
You don't suddenly run up to the podium and start banging a gong.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And when you sit down for dinner, you don't serve dog feces on a dining table and call it food. You don't randomly drive your car off a cliff or shoot a police officer without reason.
Yeah.
The author is asking you to deeply examine your daily boundaries. How much freedom are you actually exercising versus how much are you just operating within the extremely narrow parameters of your physical and social conditioning?
So it's like we think we are playing this massive open world video game where we can go anywhere and do anything, but the author is saying we're actually just NPCs.
Non-playable character.
Right, NPCs on a fixed track. We feel like we're actively choosing our actions, but the underlying code, whether that's biological hunger or a psychological need for validation or just deeply ingrained societal norms, is totally forcing our hand.
The NPC metaphor is incredibly accurate for this text. The author compares us to actors following a director's strict instructions, or chess pieces that must obey the overarching strategy of the player.
Oh, that makes sense.
It even uses the analogy of internet search engines. When you look for information online, you have to strictly follow the computer's network protocols. You aren't free to just invent new rules for how the internet's infrastructure works.
You just operate entirely within the system's inevitability.
Exactly.
But wait, if we're completely bound by this code, how does the author explain the human drive for self-improvement? I mean, why do we care so much about getting a PhD or a promotion or building a legacy if the script is already written and we're just NPCs?
Well, that brings us to how the text defines freedom. In this framework, freedom isn't an absolute state, it's a relative comparative state.
Okay, relative to what?
So, the author argues that we pursue these things to achieve relative freedom within our specific domain. For example, think about an insect's world. It's incredibly limited, right?
Yeah, very tiny worldview.
Now compare that to a bird's world. Relative to the insect, the bird lives in a kingdom of freedom. It has more dimensionality, more capability to move and react. Carnivores have more relative freedom than herbivores. And the human world, relative to the animal world, is a kingdom of freedom.
Okay, so applying that to our daily lives. When a kid from a rural area works incredibly hard to go to a top university, or when someone grinds for years to earn a master's degree.
Or hustle to build a business, yeah.
Right. What are we actually doing there?
According to the text, these earthly pursuits are simply our mechanical attempts to expand our living space within our current programmed sphere.
So it's just about getting more breathing room.
Exactly. When you get a higher degree, your knowledge enriches, your thinking becomes slightly more flexible, and your survival space broadens. When you earn more money, your range of permitted activities in society expands.
You can travel, you can buy better food, avoid certain hardships.
Right. You are achieving a greater relative freedom. But you are still entirely within the human kingdom of necessity.
I hear that, but it's a tough pill to swallow. Are you telling me that a doctor who spends a decade training to cure diseases, or someone who works tirelessly to lift their family out of deep poverty is just spinning their wheels?
In the grand cosmic sense of this text, yes.
The text implies this doesn't actually break the system at all. It's basically just buying yourself a bigger, nicer birdcage.
That is the exact imagery the philosophy invokes.
You have a lot more room to fly around, you have premium seeds to eat, but you're still fundamentally trapped behind the bars of the human circle.
A bigger birdcage, perfectly said. The system cannot be broken by playing the system's game really well. To map this out visually, the text asks us to imagine 16 concentric circles drawn on a piece of paper, one inside the other.
Right, let's break these circles down because this is where the cosmology of the text gets wild.
It really does. So at the very center, the smallest, tightest circle is what the author calls the inflamed space.
Sounds awful.
It is. Moving outward, you graduate to slightly larger, relatively freer circles. The next is the frozen space, then the netherworld, then the plant world, the animal world, and then our human world.
Wait, so humanity isn't even close to the top? We're just one of the middle circles in this massive program.
Exactly. We're just in the middle. And beyond the human world, the circles continue expanding into higher, much less restrictive realms.
Like what?
You move up to the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, all the way up to the 16th and largest circle, the Celestial Islands continent.
Okay, wow.
The crucial mechanism to understand here is that each of these circles is its own self-contained kingdom of necessity. They each have their own inevitable programs and rules. Escaping one circle just means you graduate into a wider circle.
So if earthly success, money, status, education, even philanthropy is just interior decorating for our current cage, how do we actually break the bars? Because surely a system can't just dismantle itself from the inside.
That is the exact logical pivot Zhifeng makes. You absolutely cannot break the rules of a closed system using the tools of that same closed system. The text references the ancient philosophical concepts of escaping the three realms and the five elements.
Let's pause and define those because they sound very abstract. What exactly are the three realms and the five elements in the context of this text?
Right. So in Eastern philosophy, the three realms generally refer to the realms of desire, form, and formlessness. It's basically the entirety of cyclical, worldly existence.
Okay, got it. And the five elements?
The five elements wood, fire, earth, metal, water. They represent the fundamental building blocks of all material reality. The text uses these concepts to describe a perfectly self-contained closed loop of cause and effect.
Meaning everything just bounces off everything else?
Exactly, because the five elements create a closed loop. Interacting with them just creates more reactions within the loop. The only way to stop being bound by the rules of this material reality is to leave the system entirely.
You know, the author uses a really grounded legal analogy for this that made it finally click for me.
Oh, the tax laws one.
Yes, if you want to stop obeying the tax laws of your country, you can't just stand in your living room and declare yourself immune while continuing to live there.
They'll still arrest you.
Exactly. You have to physically emigrate. Once you cross the border and renounce citizenship, you're no longer subject to that jurisdiction's code.
Right. Or if you hate the regulations of your corporate job, you can't just ignore them. You resign.
Leaving the human world for a higher circle, like the 1,000-year world, is essentially resigning from the earthly program entirely.
Which brings us to the mechanism of how one actually resigns. The text uses a very humbling analogy here. Think of a pig you raise in a pen.
Okay.
No matter how clever that pig is, no matter how lively or rebellious it acts, it cannot figure out the latch to escape its kingdom of necessity on its own.
That makes sense.
Or the bird we talked about earlier. No matter how beautifully it sings or how fast it flies inside the cage, it cannot unlatch the door. The pig needs a human to open the gate. The bird needs a human to open the cage.
So we are the pigs and the birds.
Pretty much.
We cannot think, meditate, or work our way out of our own biological and societal system.
Correct. We require external intervention. The text argues that humans inherently need divine mercy, specifically the help of gods and Buddhas, to escape the constraints of our earthly kingdom of necessity.
And this isn't just about escaping a physical space, right?
Right.
Flying to another planet. The author makes a very intense distinction about where the actual prison is located.
It's not physical walls.
No, the most terrifying prison, according to the text, is the prison of thought and spirit. You cannot escape the grand prison of the human world without first breaking out of this mental prison.
Yes.
And to explain how this mental prison is actively managed, the author introduces a familiar concept but redefines it entirely. He uses the name Satan.
Right, but the text is clear. This is just a convenient explanation. We aren't talking about a red guy with a pitchfork in a fiery underworld.
Right, no pitchforks.
We are talking about Satan as an administrator program, like an IT manager whose entire job is to keep the earthly software running perfectly.
And keeping it running perfectly means making sure none of the user's Asteris can easily log off or escape.
Exactly. The administrator's goal is total retention. And how does this administrator keep us trapped? Not with chains, but with distractions.
Oh, this is the part about the accomplices, right?
Yes. The text warns that many people act as accomplices to this program. These accomplices speak endlessly about wisdom, ethics, and success, but they ignore the actual principles of escaping the system.
They just give us busy work.
Exactly. They burden us with countless rules, restrictions, and doctrines that bind our physical and mental freedom even tighter to the earthly plane.
I mean, think about your own social media feed right now. How many videos did you watch today telling you the 5 rules for a perfect morning routine?
Oh my gosh, so many.
Right. Or the influencers telling you that you need to wake up at 4 a.m., take an ice bath, journal for an hour, optimize your gut health, and follow a 10-step productivity system to be a quote-unquote high performer.
It's exhausting just hearing it.
Shifeng would argue the algorithm feeding you those videos is literally the warden of your mental prison. These accomplices are like prison guards disguised as life coaches.
That is a phenomenal application of the text's mechanics.
Yeah.
Because why do these self-help rules trap us? Because they force you to obsess over optimizing your physical avatar.
Your body, your ego, your worldly status.
Exactly. By hyperfixating on optimizing the NPC, you inherently bind your consciousness tighter to the earthly circle. You aren't learning how to log out. You're just becoming obsessed with playing the game better.
They keep you exhausted, delaying your actual spiritual journey.
Yep.
Okay, so if we are stuck in a mental prison, the guards are disguised as motivational speakers, and the whole system is actively managed by a program designed to keep our avatars distracted.
What is the actual mechanism for our jailbreak?
How do we get out? Yeah, if we're NPCs, how do we access the developer console? How do we emulate the bird getting its cage opened?
The escape vector relies entirely on connecting with the program's original designers. The text is very explicit about this, relying solely on your own energy, and your own earthly wisdom is entirely futile.
So no amount of reading or meditating alone will do it?
No. You cannot hack the matrix from the inside using the matrix's own tools because your brain and your logic are part of the matrix. You need the designer to give you the exploit.
Okay, I have to push back on this designer concept, though. This feels like a massive paradox in the text.
How so?
Well, if we are completely programmed NPCs, lacking any true free will, how do we even have the agency to choose to follow these guides? Isn't choosing to surrender to the designer just another programmed response?
That is the ultimate paradox of determinism, and it's a brilliant question. The text handles this by shifting the perspective from active choice to inevitable alignment.
Inevitable alignment.
Yes, you don't freely choose the guides in a vacuum. Rather, through the agonizing friction of living in the earthly program, the suffering, the exhaustion of trying to optimize the avatar, your specific programming reaches a breaking point.
So you just crash?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And at that breaking point, the only inevitable next step is surrender. It is less about you bravely choosing a path and more about the original developers dropping a software patch that your system eventually has to download.
Wow, okay. And the text gets very specific about who these developers or guides are, right? It says, we need the power of the source, and it points to relying on the guidance of figures like Jesus and Shakyamuni the Buddha to lead us out.
Yes, these figures are presented not just as oracle teachers or religious icons, but as literal guides who understand the architecture of the higher concentric circles.
They have the source code.
Exactly. They know the exact pathway out of the human program. And this brings us to the ultimate practical application proposed in the text. The author, Suefeng, states that an organization called Lifechanyuan was established for this exact mechanical purpose.
Right, Lifechanyuan. Let's unpack what that actually is in the context of this source material, because it sounds like it's presented as the definitive escape hatch.
In the text, Lifechanyuan is presented as a spiritual community and a set of values designed specifically to align human consciousness with the higher circles. It's the practical pathway.
The actual bridge.
Yes. The author argues that following the values of Lifechanyuan, which involve shedding earthly attachments, rejecting traditional family and societal structures that bind you, and aligning with the source, is the necessary, inevitable mechanism to move from the earthly kingdom of necessity into the relatively freer realms.
Like the thousand-year world.
Exactly. It is presented as the bridge between the human circle and the higher circles.
So, to keep our video game metaphor going, if we can't escape without the designer's patch, and Lifechanyuan is the specific exploit code we're supposed to run, is the ultimate goal to stop being an actor entirely?
That's the big question.
Do we eventually get to turn the game off? Or is the goal simply to get cast in a much better play like this thousand-year world, directed by the source instead of the administrator program we called Satan?
Based on the mechanics of the 16 concentric circles the author described, it is the latter. Escaping the human circle lands you in the thousand-year world, which is another larger circle.
So it's still a cage.
Well, it is a kingdom of freedom relative to Earth, but it's still fundamentally a system. You are indeed getting cast in a better, freer play. You have a wider stage, a better script, and an infinitely more benevolent director.
Okay, I see.
You are moving upward through a hierarchy of relative freedoms, but you are still within the architecture of existence. The journey is about progressive liberation from the kingdom of necessity, step by step.
Wow. We have covered some massive paradigm-shifting ground today.
We really have.
For everyone listening, we started by confronting the really uncomfortable reality that our choices might just be biological and social programming, that we are heavily restricted characters driven by an unseen script. We mapped out those 16 concentric circles, realizing that all our frantic earthly ambitions, the degrees, the money, the status, might just be us spending our lives trying to buy a slightly larger, slightly shinier cage.
We explored the mechanics of Earth as a closed system, too. A mental prison managed by an administrator program that keeps us distracted with rules, ego optimization, and fake wisdom preached by accomplices.
Those fake life coaches.
Exactly. And finally, we looked at Suefeng's proposed escape route, acknowledging our total inability to free ourselves from a closed loop, and instead relying on the software patches provided by external guides, the source, Jesus, Buddha, and aligning with the specific pathway of Lifechanyuan to break out into a higher, freer realm.
It completely changes how you look at a mundane Tuesday afternoon, doesn't it?
It really does. I encourage you, the listener, to bring this philosophy into your daily life today. The next time you feel overwhelmingly driven to secure a promotion, or you feel your blood pressure rising to win a petty argument online.
Or you feel guilty for not waking up at 5 a.m. to do an ice bath.
Exactly. Just take a breath, take a step back, and ask yourself, are you acting out of true freedom right now? Or are you simply fulfilling the inevitable, exhausting script of your human programming?
Are you trying to escape the cage, or are you just polishing the bars?
That is the perfect question to hold on to.
But I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to chew on. Something that builds on the text's logic but pushes just a bit further.
Let's hear it.
We talked about moving up through those 16 circles. If escaping one circle simply lands you in a larger, freer circle all the way up to the 16th circle, which the text calls the Celestial Islands continent, does that mean even the ultimate kingdom of freedom is just another grander program?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Right. Can we ever truly step off the game board entirely, or are we just destined to play on a more beautiful board forever? Think about it the next time you feel like you're behind the wheel.